Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. So 50% of the questions in your PMP exam will be from predictive project management techniques, and the rest of the 50% of the questions will test you on agile or hybrid project management, okay? Now that's almost half of your exam. Now, while most of us are comfortable with waterfall or predictive type of project management, how we should go about preparing for the agile or hybrid part of the PMP exam syllabus. That is what we are going to discuss in this video. So this agile or hybrid part of the PMP exam, which mind you comprises of 50% of the entire exam, keeps catching out even the most well-prepared candidates, okay? Now you have prepared with all the mock simulators and you have gone through the PMBOK guide, Agile practice guide, or maybe even Rita's book, okay? And surely you feel confident walking into the PMP exam. However, suddenly half of the paper feels like a different language, okay? Scrum teams, hybrid situations, servant leadership questions during a retrospective, spikes, backlogs, they really throw your momentum off, okay? And keeps you second guessing all along, okay? And your exam becomes a complete disaster. So guys, in this video today, I'll help you to crack this, okay? And walk you through exactly what that 50% difficult part of the PMP exam is all about and why just the Agile practice guide alone is not enough to prepare for it, okay? So let's get the discussion started. Okay, fine. So let's start with the most misunderstood part, okay? The split of the questions in your PMP exam. Now, many aspirants assume that most of the PMP exam will be predictive or waterfall style since that's what traditional project management look like. However, PMI has clearly stated in the examination content outline that the exam is roughly 50% predictive and 50% agile or hybrid. Now that means about half of your questions in your exam will involve agile values, roles, artifacts, or hybrid decision making, right? However, realistically, candidates have said that in their actual exam, they have experienced the agile concepts being tested for over more than 50% of the questions, okay? So what they really experienced in the exam was a split of roughly 60 to 70% of agile questions and only 30 to 40% of predictive questions. Now the problem is, while preparing for the agile track of the PMP exam, most candidates read the Agile practice guide from PMI thinking that that's enough. Now it's short, it's simple, and the students assume they have covered that section and they are ready for the exam just because they have covered the Agile practice guide. However, contrary to popular belief, the PMP exam doesn't ask you to define what, let's say, our daily Scrum is, okay? Nor does it wants you to list all the roles in a Scrum team, okay? So such memory-based questions, which probably you can solve reading the Agile practice guide for sure, will not be presented to you in the PMP exam, okay? Instead, it will put you in a real-world Agile project management scenario and it will ask you to make decisions as a project manager. Now, surely the Agile practice guide from PMI will not prepare you for such kind of nuances. And hence, to answer such kind of situation-based Agile questions, you need a lot more than just definitions or memorization. You need Agile thinking, ability to link the theory with practical situations, and more importantly, the PMI mindset for Agile or hybrid project management, especially when multiple questions in your PMP exam will have more than one seemingly correct answer, right? So the million-dollar question is how to go about it. So to tackle that, let's first understand when to use predictive methodology and when to use agile or hybrid methodology, okay? Because that's the basics. Now, honestly, this is where most aspirants get confused. You read a question and you are not sure whether the team should use an iterative agile approach or if they need a fixed scope and timeline directing the decision-making needle towards predictive project management, okay? So here is the thumb rule which you can apply. If the requirements of a project are well defined and they are unlikely to change, go predictive, okay? Likewise, if the client expects ongoing feedback and frequent delivery, you go for agile or hybrid. Now, in the midway, if the project involves both, let's say, you are working on a hardware product delivery with agile based software updates, okay? So there is a predictive track and there is an agile track. That's a hybrid setup, okay? Now remember guys, the exam doesn't always make it obvious, okay? The words predictive or waterfall or agile will not be presented to you as part of the question. Instead, it will describe the nature of the work, the stakeholder expectations, and the delivery flow, okay? And as an exam taker, you will have to infer the delivery approach from the context provided to you in the question. Make sense? So let's try to understand this with an example. Suppose you are leading a project to develop a health tracking wearable. Okay, let's say for example, the hardware of this health tracking wearable must meet strict safety and GDPR regulations with fixed delivery timelines, while the software part of this wearable is updated weekly based on user feedback. Now that is a hybrid project, predictive for the hardware scope and agile for the software scope. So if you treat it as fully predictive or fully agile, you will obviously end up choosing the wrong answer choice for this scenario, okay? Now let's take a step further and solve a real PMP style question on agile. So Maria is a project manager for a virtual team. Virtual team is very important guys, and midway during the 4th iteration of product development, she finds out that the team dashboard which shows the progress update of the project is not registering any updates. What action should Maria take now to resolve this situation? Now, if you read the options very carefully guys, and I think this is one of the critical learning points for this question, you should be knowing about the key terminologies such as iteration, daily stand-up, business value, etc. Okay? Because if you don't know these basics, you won't be able to comprehend the questions properly and you will invariably end up choosing the wrong answer. Now I will link a few good agile courses on Udemy which you can check out if you are still struggling with the basics of agile. Now in this scenario, let's see what is the best possible option for Maria as a project manager. Option A, ask the team to send updates over email and stop using the dashboard. Now this is too naive guys as an approach of a project manager, okay? You just can't discontinue the use of a dashboard which you were using in the first, second and third iteration suddenly in the 4th one, okay? Also imagine the level of complexity you will experience if a virtual team like this, I mentioned that this one is very important, right? So if a virtual team like this starts sending you email updates for every task, it will be utter madness guys, okay? So option A is invariably a wrong option. Option B, discuss in the daily stand-up the most effective way to fix the dashboard. Now to evaluate this answer, you should know what stand-ups are, okay? Very briefly, stand-ups are daily meetings that happen during agile projects where the previous 24-hour updates and the next 24-hour plan is discussed and aligned with the product owner or the scrum master, okay? Also, the team discusses the impediments and risks in the meeting, and this is a risk which you have, okay? So B is a very strong choice guys. However, we'll still not finalize it till we have evaluated all the other options, okay? Now let's go to option C. Develop a priority matrix and assess how important it is to fix the dashboard to create business value. Now this can also be a possible options guys, okay? You can argue that a priority matrix is important and in the end you need to assess how important it will be to help create business value. So C is a potential option guys and we'll hold this option for now. Option D, update issue register. Okay, now if you know about what is a issue register, whenever there is a risk which was preempted and it converts into an actual risk in the project, you go and update the issue register. So you should know the difference between when to update a risk register and when to update a issue register. Now this is an operational issue which you are solving guys, and it was not a risk that was like preempted, so you are not knowing that the dashboard will crash, okay? So updating issue register is a wrong option because it's not a risk that has materialized 100% into a project, okay? So updating issue register is a wrong option. That leaves us with option B and option C. Now, it's very important, guys, that you understand that developing a priority matrix to assess how important it is to fix the dashboard to create business value, it's, let's say, a redundant option, guys, okay? Because in the end, the team was using this dashboard for the first, second, and third iterations. And since it's a virtual team, as we have seen right here, it's very important to keep that single point of communication, which is the dashboard, across multiple members placed across different geographies, okay, to function well. So that's very, very important. So even if you do this exercise of option C, which is you develop a priority matrix and you assess the importance of it to create business value, you will invariably end up with yes, it is important and it is relevant for creating business value for your customer. So it's a pretty futile exercise, guys, because in the end, you know the dashboard is important for the customer and for your agile team as well, okay? So C is definitely a wrong answer for this particular reason, okay? And the correct answer to this question is option B, which is you need to discuss this issue in a daily stand-up, because in the daily stand-up, you talk about risks, you talk about impediments which will affect your plan for the next 24 hours, right? So B is a very good choice, guys. Discuss this issue in the daily stand-up and the most effective way to fix the dashboard. So the correct answer to this question is option B. Well, I hope this exercise gave you a flavor of what kind of questions you will get in your PMP exam for Agile or Hybrid. Now, there are multiple videos on Agile topics which are available on my YouTube channel, okay? So make sure you watch those videos as well after this one. Now, moving on, when it comes to Agile frameworks, guys, PMI expects you to understand the basics of, let's say, Scrum, the basics of Kanban, XP, Lean, Safe, etc. Okay? Not in depth, but yes, deep enough to know which one suits which kind of project flow. Again, the fit of a particular delivery approach with the project's execution strategy. That is the skill which you need to master as a PMP exam aspirant. So for example, Scrum focuses on roles, sprints, and time-boxed work, okay? And Kanban helps to visualize and limit work in progress, focusing on a smooth project flow. Lean, on the other hand, reduces wastes and again improves flow. So you won't be asked to write these definitions in your PMP exam, okay? But you will need to know which approach fits the scenario provided to you as part of the question. So the underlying theme that is coming out is very clear, right? The best way to prepare for Agile and Hybrid questions for your PMP exam is to practice decision making and application, not the definitions from the Agile practice guide. Now you need to analyze what the question is asking, what values are being challenged, what does the team need most at the moment of the challenge. So those kind of things, okay? Also, if you are using mock simulators, make sure you provide special attention to Agile and Hybrid questions. So whilst you are solving those mocks, study how those questions are worded and carefully notice how the answers reflect empowerment, flexibility, and value delivery. That is what PMI is looking for. Now, my mock simulator on Udemy, which has of course received many positive feedbacks from students, actually helps you to learn this skill. So you can check it out if you wish to be a part of the batch and interact with me one-on-one as your instructor via the Udemy platform. All the links will be provided in the description section of this video. So to wrap this up, guys, yes, Agile or Hybrid questions in your PMP exam are challenging, right? No doubt about it, because they really don't feel like traditional project management approach. Even further, many of us as project managers might not have led Agile projects firsthand, okay? And the reason for which many of the Agile terms and definitions may not come very intuitively to us. Hence, it is absolutely critical that you, firstly, understand the theory, secondly, reflect on the application side of the theory, because that is what will matter for the PMP exam, and thirdly, practice as many as scenario-based questions as possible on Agile and Hybrid topics whilst you are preparing for the exam. And just to give you that flavor, we solved one sample question today in this video, right? However, I encourage you to practice even more questions on Agile and Hybrid via my monthly Q&A sessions on YouTube, which are of course for free. And also, if you are more interested to solve questions with me, you can use my mock simulator on Udemy. Now, if you follow this approach, guys, I assure you that you will be 99% ahead of your peers when it comes to your performance in the PMP exam, okay? See you in the next video.